Hi, so I'm going to teach you today how I cast on for the Harvey Poncho, and the reason I choose a very simple cable stitch, it is slightly different from the knit stitch, is because with the Harvey Poncho it is a rectangle, so you've got a cast on and a cast off, and you want them to look quite similar. So that is the cast on, the cable that I'm about to teach you, and then this is the cast off. So as you see, it's a bit different, but you can't really tell. So this is why I've chosen the cable cast on for the Harvey Poncho. So this is how I start this off. So I'll start with a simple slip knot. So we're using for this the super chunky, it's the lovely Tubley 100% merino wool. I'm right-handed, so I also knit English because it suits my style. I was taught it as a child, and that is my preferred way to knit. So I leave about this much of the tail, and I simply wrap it around my fingers like that, and I make a loop, and it's a slip knot. Very simple slip knot. I have the tail in this hand, and I'll slip one of the needles in and tighten it up, and that is basically my first stitch. Now what I do is I'll insert my right needle underneath, and I'm holding the wool here. I'm holding the wool, and I'm gonna throw my wool over, bring my right needle up, stretch and make a loop, twist it, and put my left needle in the loop and pull out the right, and that has formed a stitch. Now this is where it changes, the cable changes. It's different from the knit because I'm going to insert this in between two, and I'm going to throw the wool over, pull it through, make a loop, put the left needle in between, and that's it. Gently pull, and then put my right needle in between the two. Can you see that? In between the two. Throw the wool, pull it out, make a loop, and I made another one. Throw the wool, bring it back through, make a loop, put the left under, do it again. Throw the wool, grab it, make a loop, twist it, pull it through. And I'll just carry on for however the pattern says that how many stitches you need to make your project. But as I say, this is the one that I choose to use for the Harvey. This is what happens if you do it a little bit too tight. You want these to be quite loose so that it basically becomes quite stretchy, because it's not a very loose, it's not a very stretchy, because you want the poncho to keep its shape. So you don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose either. You just want to try and make it all the same. Twist it out, gently pull the wool. Throw it, twist it. And I'm gently pulling it out with my working yarn hand. So it's in this hand, and I'm gently, so here we go. I'll just do a couple more, and there we go. That is the start of how to do the cable cast on for the Harvey Poncho using the soupy chunky merino wool, and these are actually 10mm needles, so it makes it very, very easy to knit with. It's fantastic wool and the needles are very easy to knit with, so this is the perfect beginner piece. Hi, we have cast on using the cable stitch, and the reason for that is so that the front and the back of the Harvey Poncho can be as similar as possible. It's not very stretchy, but we do need to keep the tension quite consistent, so be careful as you're casting on for the amount of stitches that you need according to the pattern. What I'm going to show you now is the knit one, purl one skill that you're going to need to knit the entire poncho. So this is stockinette. The main body of the poncho is stockinette or stocking stitch, and it's basically knit one on one side. Knit is this, where it looks like a little V, and purl is this side where it's like little bumps, little pearls. And basically this is called moss stitch or seed stitch, and this is a combination of knit one, purl one, and alternating it. So what I'm going to show you now is how to knit both of them in this one tutorial. So it's going to last a few minutes, but we're going to make it as quick as possible. I've just put 10 stitches on here. So basically a very simple knit stitch is push the needle through the first one. The yarn is at the back. You're going to throw the yarn over the right needle, pull it back, pull it through to make a little loop, push that stitch off and tighten the stitch with your right hand. And a purl is where, oh, I nearly forgot. A purl is you bring the yarn forward. So the bump is always at the front. So you're going to make sure that from the back to the front, and this is how you make a purl. So now you put the yarn to the front, push the needle and slip the stitch off. To make a knit, you put the yarn to the back, then you knit, throw the wool over and slip it off. We're going to do a purl, bring the yarn forward, throw the yarn, slip it off. Hold the yarn now. So go to the front, put the yarn to the back because you're knitting. Throw the yarn, slip the stitch, put it to the front and throw the yarn. This is the purl. Now knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one. Okay, so that is your very simple knit one, purl one, and what you will see is the knit is quite straight and the purl has got a bump. So that is the difference between knit one, purl one. With stocking stitch, it's all flat and that makes that pattern. The purl makes that pattern. So this is what's called the wrong side and this is the right side. So the knit is always the flat, the purl is always the bump. With moss stitch, we alternate. So sounds a bit complicated, but it isn't, I promise you. Once you've done one row, it'll be absolutely fine. But on the knit, we're actually going to purl because you want this alternate pattern. You want this to come up and show. So on the knit, I'm going to throw the wool to the front and I'm going to purl the knit. So it's now at the front. I'm now purling on the knit. Slip the wool off the needle, and now I'm going to put the wool to the back, and this is a bump, but I'm actually going to knit the purl. So I'm knit the purl, and now I'm going to bring the wool over to the front, and I'm going to purl the knit. Knit the purl, purl the knit. And this is called moss stitch. To the front on the knit. And I'm knitting the purl. Oh, didn't catch it there. Bring it forward. Purling on the knit. And I'm going to finish with a knit. Now what I'm just going to show you is how to basically go from there to straight onto the stocking stitch. Do you see? So where I'm now just going to stop the moss stitch. So I've done enough. And now I'm just going to go straight onto stocking stitch, which is knitting. So basically, I'm just going to carry on, put the wool to the back, the knee, and I'm just going to carry on knitting. And that is how simple going from moss stitch to stocking stitch is, and it is all knit one, purl one. So now all I'm doing is knitting. I'm on the knit stitch, and now what I'm going to do is turn it over, because now I've got a row of purls on the back, so I'm now going to purl it. So you slip the needle underneath. I've got the wool at the front, the needle at the front. I throw the wool and slip the stitch to the front, throw it, slip it, throw it, slip it, throw it. Done. And now you can start to see how I'm forming. Can you see? We've done a cast on, a cable cast on. We've started the moss stitch, and now we've just gone straight on to doing one row of knit one, purl one. This is knit one, purl one, alternating. This one is a row of knit, a row of purl. And that's really all that the Harvey Poncho is. Hi, this is how to add a new piece of yarn. So this is the old bit, so I've run out, so I need to put in a new, either a new colour or just a new ball of wool. So basically I've got to the end. It's better to add wool at the end of a row. So I've got to the end of the row, and I'm going to put the new wool underneath, and I'm just going to make a little knot like that, and I'm going to scoop it up to there, and that's at the end. I've got two that I'll cut off later or tie in, and I will just start knitting. And it's as simple as that. Get to the end. And you'll see, all joined in. And at the end, you've just got a little knot already, and then we'll snip it off to about there, and I'll show you how to tie those ends in. But that's very secure now. That's not going anywhere. Done. Hi, so I'm going to teach you in this tutorial how to cast off with the knitting the Harvey Poncho. So imagine this is this. Because it is just basically a big rectangle. It's got the moss stitch, it's got the stocking stitch. We're going to cast off and on. I'm going to teach you how to do a seamless seam, an invisible seam. But in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is just show you how to cast off. The important thing about casting off with the cable knit so that it looks very similar is that you've got to keep it quite loose so it has the same tension as this. So not too tight and not too loose. So just keep an eye on when you are casting off that it's got the same tension as this. So it's very simple to do. So what you must make sure with this particular pattern, each amount of moss stitch is exactly the same amount here. So in this scenario, I've done 6, and you can count this. It's always better to count it on the right side. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I've got the casting on. So again, it is 1, so you can see like a little purl, a little bump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the casting on. And then on this side, let's just make sure we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then what's on the needle is 6. So it's very important to remember that it's the row that's on the needle is the last one. So this needs to be even numbers, not odd numbers. It's got to be even numbers for this to work, because you need to be casting off on the wrong side so that it matches this as close as it can. We need this to cast off on the wrong side. So now it's very simple. What you do is, so I've got all of the leftover yarn here. Even though it's on we're talking on the moss stitch, I'm just going to knit. I'm always going to knit for my cast off. So I keep bashing the things, so I'm going to knit 1, slip it off, tighten it up, but not too tight. You still want it a little bit loose, but not too loose. You just don't want this all baggy. And then I'm just going to knit another one so that it's like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this one and I'm going to put it over this one and let it go. I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to do it very gently, not too loose, but not too tight, because I want to be able to slip it over easily. So now you can see it's starting to cast off. I'm going to do it again. I'm not really tightening anything. slip it over. And I'm going to do it again. I'm just making it very loose. Well, not very loose, but the tension means that I'm not making it too tight. Do you see it's still quite bouncy? And I'm knitting quite close to the tip to make it so that it's not too much of a loop. Do you see? So let me do that one again. I'm knitting quite close to the tips so that when I get the loop, it doesn't have to go a long way. Okay? So do it again. I'm not really tightening it. I'm just keeping it quite, it's consistent. That's what you want. You just want the consistent tension, because if you don't get the same as what you cast on, you're going to get one edge tighter than the other, and it's not going to fall. The actual poncho is not going to look very good. And there you go. Just slip that over the end. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that off, drop my needles, and put it in my thumb. Oops. And I'm just going to make a big enough gap to put that in there. And then I'm just going to gently tighten it up. And then that is a cast off. But do you see it's like a little plait on this side, but on this side, it looks much closer to this. And the tension isn't that far off. So this one is actually a little bit tighter than what I've just cast off, but that's better than it being too tight. So you can see I'm not far off it, but and that's perfectly acceptable. So there we go, you have cast off. So now what we need to do in the next tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to sew the ends up to be like this. Hi, so in this tutorial, we're coming to the end of the Harvey Poncho, but I'm basically going to teach you how to sew up your poncho. This is the exciting bit. So this is the one seam that it has, but it's called an invisible seam. So I'm just going to teach you how to do that. Okay, so imagine this is your poncho. This is the last bit of wool, so this is that bit that you cast off right at the end. So I'm just going to go halfway, just going to do about 3. So 1, 2, 3, it's like halfway. I should be able to sew everything up that I need with that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to thread my wool like this. And basically what we want to do is match up the moss stitch, match up all of the stocking stitch. So it's more difficult with the moss stitch to get this right, but we're going to give it a go. So don't worry if you do need to unpick this. It took me a little while to get it, but basically, if you see here, this is the V for each line, each stitch. And it does follow on through the moss stitch like this. Do you see? So you want to be going along the same line. So that's going to be your guide. I'm choosing this inner. So I'm going to miss this little bit out and I'm going to use this as my guide. And then so what I need to do is find exactly the same on the side that I'm going to stitch it to. And then what this is called, in between the V's, these are called bars, and you want to be finding these bars in each of the stitches. So there's a bar, there's a bar, there's a bar, there's a bar, there's a bar. So that's where this is the one I'm going to use. So right at the end, because you want all of this to join. This is right at the end, so you want this to be right at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight under that very end stitch, that very end loop, and I'm just going to sew that together. So now I've actually started, so now I've just got to keep it going. And I've got to concentrate that I do not go off track. So you're basically looking to make sure it all flows. So this bit is going to be the most difficult bit because it's all a bit of a mess. So I tried to find the bit that is the first loop in this little channel, which is basically this one here. Right, so I've gone on this side. I've now gone in there, and now what I need to do is find basically the same one on this side. Oh, there. Can you see? And now what I need to do that loop in there. It can be a bit fiddly. It's fiddly with the moss stitch, but clearer. Just going to go in there like that. So that is my dog in the background. Heavy panting. Right. Can you see what I'm doing? Just trying to get it all in the same line. Can you see? Now it should flow easier. So this is doing sewing on the moss stitch part of it. I want to find these bars so that it all lines up. So there's a bar. There's a bar. Okay, so now I've sewn this up, but you can see that's lining up, that's lining up, that's lining up. So now you can see it does look a bit of a mess, but that's because it's two different colours. So now we're straight onto the stocking stitch, and this is where it becomes much easier, right? So you can see the bars. You've got to follow this line that you're already on each one. So I've got one there. One here, do you see? One there. One there. One there. And carry that on until on the poncho it's going to be, because this is where the head goes, you're going to leave about 1 foot. So I'm just going to carry on sewing a little bit more. And this is where the change of wool happened. So you've just got to remember to just stay on track on that line. So these are the bars you're after still. Just gonna go, you want to go past a knot when you're finishing off. So that go past this, otherwise it'd be a bit messy. Right, and then that is that. So now I'm going to turn it over and have a look at how it's all come together. So you can adjust things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust that a little bit. But when it's the same colour, you wouldn't notice that. But so basically, it's all lined up. All lined up. And this is the stocking stitch invisible seam. There we go. And that's how we sew up the seam, and it looks really nice and neat on the back. But you just will get better and better at this the more that you do. So then to finish off, you need to make it quite tight. So basically that looks a little bit loose. So you're going to have to find something for it to hang on to so that it doesn't gape. So I'm going to find the bars again. Find that bar, sew it together and put that like you would with sewing. And then I'm just going to bring it down a bit and then be careful not to, and then sort of sew it in wherever you can, just to make it look strong. And that is how to knit the net bit off your poncho so that it lines up and you get an invisible seam and you can finish it off so it's nice and tight. There we go. And that's it on the back.